Over the following weeks, Lyra stayed hidden in John's apartment learning about human culture, through books, television, and John's stories. She was fascinated by everything Earth music made her eyes glow brighter. Human food caused her skin to shimmer. In new patterns, she laughed at sitcoms and cried at sunsets. Her reactions were both alien and surprisingly human. John had called in sick to work for the first few days, but eventually had to return. He gave Lyra strict instructions to stay inside, keep the curtains drawn and avoid being seen. She agreed, understanding the need for secrecy. Though he could tell the confinement frustrated her, Lyra was an explorer by nature, and keeping her hidden felt wrong somehow. Each evening when he returned home, John found her bursting with questions. Why do humans keep pets that serve no purpose? Why do they cry at fictional stories? Why do they create art that serves no function? These questions made John see his own world differently. He had never questioned these things, they were just part of being human. I think we do these things because they make us feel connected. Lyra John tried to explain one evening as they ate dinner together. She had discovered a love for spicy food which made her skin pulse with soft light. We need meaning beyond survival, beyond function. Lyra considered this, her head tilting in that bird-like way she had. Valen society values efficiency, purpose, progress. We eliminated elements that did not serve these goals. Perhaps we eliminated too much. John found himself drawn to her. Not just her alien beauty, but her perspective. She saw wonder in things he took for granted. The taste of chocolate, the sound of rain, the feeling of sand between toes. She made his ordinary world extraordinary through her eyes. He began bringing her small things from outside, flowers that she studied with intense focus, a smooth river stone that she held for hours feeling its texture, different foods that she approached with scientific curiosity and childlike delight. He showed her his woodworking tools, teaching her how he carved small animals from blocks of wood. She proved surprisingly skilled, her slender fingers creating delicate details he could never achieve. In return, she taught him about her world using small holographic projections from her wrist device. She showed him cities made of crystal and living material structures that grew and changed with the needs of the inhabitants, ships that traveled between stars, bifolding space technology that could heal any injury, regrow any organ, convert energy to matter and back again. It all seemed like magic to John, though Lyra insisted it was simply science principles his people would discover in time if they survived. Long enough. If we survive long enough. John echoed, thinking of climate change, of wars, of all the ways humans seem determined to destroy themselves and their planet. This is why we watch your kind, Lyra said softly. You stand at a precipice. You could fall into destruction or rise to join the stars. Most species destroy themselves at this stage of development. We hope humans will be different. One night, as they sat on the roof of the apartment building watching stars, Lyra pointed to a faint cluster, barely visible even in the clear night sky. That is my home, she said. My son is there among those stars. John tried to imagine the distance, tried to comprehend how far she had traveled to reach Earth, to reach him. The enormity of it made him feel small, yet connected to something vast at the same time. Lyra sensed his thoughts. My people have traveled the stars for thousands of your years, she said. Distance means something different to us. But even so, I have come farther than most to find you. Why? John asked the question that had been haunting him since the beginning. Why me? Lyra was quiet for a long moment, staring at the stars, her silver hair reflecting the moonlight. Then she turned to him, her violet eyes serious. My people are dying. John, we have maybe 3 generations left unless we find a solution. We need human creativity, human genetics, and human heart. Our civilizations could help each other. We have technology that could solve your energy crisis, cure diseases you consider incurable, but we need humans who can think differently than we do. We need you. John stared at her, processing what she was saying. You came across space for a breeding program. Lyra shook her head. No. That is too simple. We seek partnership, a joining of minds, and cultures, and yes, eventually genetics. But only with consent, with understanding, with respect. The universe is vast and empty. John, life is precious. Intelligent life, even more so. We wish to preserve both our peoples. She showed him more detailed images of her homeworld. Tall spires of crystal cities built into mountains, oceans of silver liquid under twin moons, beautiful, advanced, perfect. It was breathtaking, but John noticed something missing. Where are the children? He asked. Where are the parks, the playgrounds, the schools? Lyra looked away. We have few children now. Our last generation numbers less than 1,000. Our reproduction has become difficult. Our genetics too similar. Despite all our technology, we cannot solve this problem. We have become too similar, too perfect. Our society values sameness where once we celebrated difference. It was beautiful but sterile. John realized perfect but cold. They need us. Not just our DNA, but our mess. Our chaos. Our passion. As days turned to weeks, John and Lyra fell into a routine. He would go to work, return home, and share his day with her. They would cook together, watch movies together, talk late into the night. Sometimes they would sneak out when darkness fell, walking in empty parks, or along deserted beaches, Lyra always disguised in human clothes, her alien features hidden under hats and scarves. During one such nighttime walk, Lyra stopped, suddenly turning to John with an intensity that made him pause. My ship has received a signal, she said. My people are growing impatient. They want to know my assessment of human compatibility of you. They are asking when I will return. John felt something cold settle in his stomach. Return. You never mentioned returning. Lyra looked surprised. Did you think I could stay forever? This was always a mission. John, a first contact to evaluate, to learn, and then to return with what I learned with recommendations. Of course, John said. Though he had not really thought about it, he had been living, day to day, enjoying her company, her perspective, her presence in his life. The thought of her leaving opened an unexpected emptiness inside him. What will you tell them? He asked. That humans are ready. That you are ready. That there is hope for both. Our species, Lyra said. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining, a gesture she had learned from human films. That I believe partnership is possible, and then they will send others, not just to you, but to others like you. Around your world. Quietly, carefully, we will build understanding before revealing ourselves more widely. Would you come back? John asked, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. Lyra's eyes seemed to glow brighter in the moonlight. That depends on you, John Miller. What? Do you mean I have learned much about humans from you? Lyra said. But there is more to learn, much more. And my people would value your perspective, your world through your eyes. Would you consider coming with me? Returning to my world? Being an ambassador, of sorts. John felt as if the ground had fallen away beneath his feet. Leave Earth. Go to another planet, another star system. I cannot ask you to decide now, Lyra said quickly. We have time. My ship needs preparation. I need to complete my reports. We have weeks yet. Before choices must be made, they walked back to the apartment in silence. John's mind racing with possibilities, fears, dreams, questions. If he left, would he ever return? Would he be giving up everything he knew for an unknown he could barely comprehend? Yet what was he leaving behind, really? A job he tolerated, an apartment he rented, friends he rarely saw, a life that had felt empty until Lyra crashed into it. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sounds of Lyra moving around in his living room. Leave Earth. The thought was terrifying, yet exhilarating. He thought of all the science fiction books he'd read as a kid, the dreams he had abandoned of exploring, of discovering, of being part of something larger than himself. Perhaps this was why Lyra had chosen him. Perhaps she had seen those forgotten dreams still burning somewhere inside him. Perhaps this had been inevitable from the moment he saw that light in the sky. John Miller sat alone at his small kitchen table eating cereal like he did every morning. His life was ordinary in every way. The same job at the local hardware store, The same apartment with faded wallpaper, the same routine day after day. He never expected anything unusual to happen to him. Not in this small town where nothing ever changed. That changed on a warm summer evening. As John walked home from work, a bright flash lit up the sky above the empty field near his apartment building. It was brighter than lightning, but without the thunder that should follow. Curiosity got the better of him, and he wandered toward where the light had been pushing through the tall grass that tickled his hands. What he found there changed everything. A sleek silver object about the size of a car sat nestled in the tall grass. Steam rose from its surface, creating a misty glow around it in the evening light. The object had no visible seams, no windows, no doors, just smooth silver that seemed to absorb and reflect light in impossible ways. John approached, slowly, his heart pounding against his ribs, each step more hesitant than the last. A panel slid open with a soft hiss, revealing an opening in the side of the craft. And there she stood, Wei. Woman was tall, with skin that shimmered slightly like mother of pearl in sunlight. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, deep violet with no whites, just pools of color that seemed to see through him. Her hair flowed down her back in waves of silver, not gray, but true metallic silver that caught the fading sunlight. Her features were delicate yet strong somehow, both alien and beautiful at once. She stepped forward gracefully, wearing what looked like a bodysuit made of flowing liquid metal that moved with her like water. She spoke, her voice musical yet clear with an accent John couldn't place. "Hello, John Miller. I am Lyra. I have traveled across 17 star systems to find you." John stumbled backward, nearly falling in his shock. "How do you know my name? Why are you here? What do you want?" Lyra tilted her head, studying him with those strange violet eyes. "I am here because of what you are capable of. What your species is capable of. You humans are unique in the galaxy." She gestured for him to sit on a fallen log nearby, and surprisingly he did. His legs felt weak, and his mind raced with questions, fears, and a strange excitement. He couldn't explain. Lyra explained that her civilization, the Valen, had been watching Earth for centuries. They had observed human creativity, resilience, and adaptability with growing interest. But they had also seen how humans fought among themselves, how they damaged their planet, how they struggled to overcome their own nature. The Valen were a dying race. Their technology was advanced beyond human understanding, but their biology was failing. Their genetic diversity had declined over thousands of years of isolation. Their birth rates had fallen to almost nothing. They needed new perspectives, new ideas, new genetic material. Lyra had been sent as an ambassador to evaluate whether humans were ready for contact, whether John specifically was suitable for their purpose. "Why me?" John asked, still struggling to accept what was happening. "Why not? Someone important, a scientist or world leader." Lyra smiled, a surprisingly human expression. "Your DNA contains specific markers we seek, but more importantly, our observations show you possess qualities we value. Kindness, creativity, adaptability. You care for your elderly neighbor. You create small, beautiful things in your workshop. You adapt to challenges with resilience. These things matter more than titles or achievements." John ran his hands through his hair, trying to process everything. Was this real? Was he dreaming? Had he finally lost his mind? If aliens wanted to contact Earth, they should be meeting with governments, not a nobody like him. "I understand your confusion," Lyra said softly. "We did not come through official channels because your governments are not ready. They would react with fear. We needed to approach someone who could understand, who could help bridge our worlds." The night grew colder around them as they talked. John listened as Lyra described her world, a planet orbiting a distant star. Her people lived in harmony with advanced technology but had lost something vital along the way. Their perfect society had become stagnant. Their long lives had become empty of purpose. Their quest for perfection had led to a dead. "And we need human spirit, human unpredictability, human heart," Lyra explained. "You still dream, still hope, still love with intensity. My people have forgotten. As she spoke, John found himself believing her. The details she shared, the emotion in her voice, the strange technology of her ship. It was too complex, too consistent to be delusion. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "To learn," Lyra said. "To understand humans through you. And perhaps for you to understand us. To be a bridge." She reached out, hesitantly, and touched his hand. Her skin felt warm, slightly textured like fine silk. Her touch sent a strange tingling sensation up his arm. Not unpleasant, just different. "Will you help me?" John Miller. He should have said no. He should have run back to his apartment, locked the door, and called someone, anyone. But something in her eyes, something in the enormity of what she offered, held him there. "Yes," he said, hardly believing his own voice. Lyra smiled again, relief evident in her posture. "Then we must hide my ship and find you. Shelter night is falling," using a small device from her wrist. The ship seemed to fold in on itself, becoming smaller and smaller, until it was no larger than a suitcase, which she picked up effortlessly. It still weighed. The same, she explained. But the gravitational field around it made it manageable. John led her back toward his apartment building, thankful for the darkness that hid her strange appearance. They avoided the main entrance, using the rarely used back stairs to reach his third-floor apartment. Once inside, John locked the door behind them, suddenly aware of how small his life was. His tiny apartment with mismatched furniture, books stacked everywhere, tools from his hobby projects scattered on every surface. It seemed shabby and insignificant now. Lyra, however, moved through the space with wonder, touching his books, examining his handmade wooden figures, looking at photographs with intense interest. "You live alone," she stated. "Yes," John replied. "Just me," she nodded, seemingly satisfied. "The less people who know of me for now, the better." John watched as she placed her ship disguised as a suitcase in the corner of his living room. She pressed a sequence on her wrist device and the ship hummed briefly, then went silent. She explained it was now in dormant mode, undetectable by any human technology. "What now?" John asked, feeling overwhelmed by everything. "Now we learn about each other," Lyra said, sitting carefully on his worn couch. "You teach me about humans, and I will teach you about the stars." That night, John barely slept. He lay in his bed while Lyra sat in the living room, absorbing information from his books, his computer, his television. Every so often he would hear her make a soft sound of surprise or interest. He kept expecting to wake up from this dream. But morning came and she was still there. Still real, still alien. Still in his apartment. His ordinary life had become extraordinary overnight. And somewhere deep inside, John knew nothing would ever be the same again. The next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. John withdrew his savings, closed his bank accounts, paid his final bills. He packed a small bag with personal treasures, photos of his parents who had passed years ago, his favorite books, a smooth river, stone from his childhood, a small wooden figure he had carved himself. When Lyra questioned these choices, he explained, "These are my anchors, my memories. I need something to remind me of Earth, of who I am." She nodded in understanding. "Among my people, memory is sacred also. We live long lives. We must remember who we were to understand who we are." John wrote letters to his few friends, to his boss, to his elderly neighbor who had been kind to him. Nothing that explained the truth, simply that he had decided to travel, that he might be gone for years, that they shouldn't worry about him. He knew these explanations were inadequate, but what could he say? What words could possibly explain what he was about to do on their final night on Earth? Lyra restored her ship to its full size. It sat gleaming in the clearing where they had first met. The sight of it made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. This was actually happening. He was leaving Earth. Inside, the ship was larger than it appeared from outside, a central cabin with control panels made of what looked like liquid crystal flowing patterns of light that responded to Lyra's touch. 2 smaller chambers, one that Lyra explained was for him, a sleeping space that adapted to his human physiology, a small area where he could store his belongings. The air inside the ship smelled different, Not unpleasant, but not quite Earth air either. Slightly metallic, slightly sweet. It made John lightheaded at first, though Lyra assured him he would adjust. That night they made final preparations. Lyra showed John the basics of the ship systems, how life support worked, how to communicate with her in an emergency. He understood little of the technology but appreciated her patience, her understanding of his limitations. "There is one more thing we must do before departure," Lyra said. Her expression was serious, solemn. She held out a small device that looked something like a silver river stone, smooth and cool to the touch. "What is it?" John asked. "A translator more complex than the one I use," she explained. "It will help you understand our language when we reach my world. It requires integration." "Integration?" "A connection to your nervous system," she said. "Not painful but intimate. It will allow direct communication, understanding beyond mere words." John hesitated. The first real modification to his human body, something alien becoming part of him. The thought was frightening. "It is not required," Lyra said softly, reading his hesitation. "But it would make your transition easier. You're learning faster. How does it work?" She explained. The device would attach at the base of his skull. It would learn from him, adapt to him, become part of him. It would translate not just language but concepts, cultural references, context. It was removable, not permanent, but while in place it would allow him to understand and be understood in ways otherwise impossible. John took a deep breath and nodded. "Do it." Lyra moved behind him, her fingers cool against his neck. There was a moment of pressure, then a strange tingling sensation that spread down his spine and up into his head. Not pain, exactly, but awareness, a sense of something new, something different. Words and concepts flickered through his mind. Languages he did not know yet somehow understood. "It will settle soon," Lyra said. Her voice sounded the same. Yet John realized he was hearing layers in it now. Meanings beneath meanings. The translator was already working. They spent their last hours on Earth on the roof of John's apartment building watching the sunrise. Lyra seemed to drink in the sight, memorizing the colors, the clouds, the way light spilled across the awakening city. "Your world is beautiful, John," she said. "So full of contrasts, so alive." "My world is beautiful in a different way. You will see." John looked out at the city, at the world he had always known. The only world humans had ever known. Would he ever see it again? Would he be the only human to see what lay beyond the stars, or would others follow? Would his journey change everything for humanity? Or would it remain secret, unknown? A mystery of a man who simply disappeared one day. "We should go," Lyra said softly. "The longer we remain, the greater the chance of discovery." John nodded, standing, taking one last look at Earth, at the sky, at the birds soaring above the city. He tried to memorize everything. The feel of the morning breeze, the sounds of the waking city, the smell of earth and growing things. "I am ready," he said. They returned to the ship hidden in the field where it all began. John carrying his small bag of treasures, Lyra moving with a new purpose, a new energy, her mission nearly complete. He took one last look around at the trees, at the grass, at the wildflowers, growing in the field. This small patch of earth would be the last he would see. It seemed important somehow to remember every detail inside the ship. Lyra guided him to a seat designed for human anatomy. It molded to his body, supporting him comfortably, securing him for what was to come. She moved to the control panel, her fingers dancing across the flowing lights. The ship hummed to life, a vibration John felt in his bones. "Are you certain?" she asked one final time. "There is no returning once we begin, not for many years, perhaps not ever. This is your last moment to choose." John looked at her, at this alien woman who had crashed into his life and changed everything. He thought of the ordinary existence he was leaving behind. And he thought of the extraordinary journey ahead. I am certain, he said. Lyra nodded and turned back to the controls. The ship hummed louder. The walls became transparent, allowing John to see outside, to see the field. The trees, the early morning sky. Take one last look, she said softly. John did, trying to burn the image into his memory. Earth, his home. Humanity's only home. For now. The ship rose silently straight up, far faster than John expected. The field shrank below them, then the city, then they were above the clouds. The sky darkened from blue to indigo to black. Stars appeared despite the rising sun. And then there was Earth below them, a blue and white jewel against the blackness of space. More beautiful than any photograph could capture. It's so small, John whispered, seeing his world from space for the first time. Everything, everyone I have ever known, everyone who has ever lived. All on that one small planet. Lyra stood beside him, her hand finding his. We see it differently. My people have traveled between worlds for thousands of your years, but we never forget the wonder of a living world. They are precious rare, each unique, each sacred. The ship continued to accelerate, Earth growing smaller behind them. The moon flashed past, a gray disk against the blackness. Then they were truly in space, truly leaving everything John had ever known falling away behind him. What happens now? He asked. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. Part fear, part wonder, part grief for what he was leaving behind. Now we travel, Lyra said. The journey will take time. Even with our technology. Even folding space as we do, distance remains. Distance must be respected. How long? 26 days, she said. By your measure, less than a month, to cross what humans had thought would take. Centuries, if it was possible at all. The technology was miraculous. Yet it still meant days, weeks of travel alone with Lyra between worlds. Between stars, you should rest, Lyra suggested. The first transition is difficult for many species. The body must adjust to space, to the ship's gravity field, to the different rhythms. John nodded, suddenly aware of a heaviness in his limbs, a disorientation that went beyond the emotional impact of leaving Earth. The translator at the base of his skull hummed warm against his skin, feeding him information about the ship's systems, about space travel, about what his body was experiencing. Lyra guided him to the chamber. She had prepared a small space that somehow felt both alien and welcoming. The bed, if it could be called that, adjusted to his body, creating a perfect cradle for his human form sleep. She said, "We have many days ahead, many things to learn to prepare you for my world. For your new life." As John drifted into sleep, his mind filled with images of Earth, of the life he had left behind, but also with dreams of what lay ahead, of alien skies and crystal cities, of new knowledge, new understandings, new purpose. He had taken the greatest leap possible, had left behind everything, familiar, everything, safe. And yet as consciousness faded, he felt no regret, only a growing certainty. This was right. This was meant to be. He was meant to be the bridge between worlds. The first human to truly reach for the stars. The first, but perhaps not the last. The next morning, John woke to find Lyra sitting cross-legged on his living room floor, surrounded by disassembled pieces of technology from her ship. Her silver hair was tied back, her slender fingers moving with precise efficiency as she adjusted, components too complex for John to understand. "What are you doing?" he asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Preparing," Lyra replied without looking up. "My ship needs adjustments for the return journey, and I need to enhance its communications array to send more detailed information back to my people." John watched her work for a while, fascinated by the way she manipulated energy fields and materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Her technology was centuries, perhaps millennia, beyond anything humans had created. Yet there was something almost artistic in the way she worked, a creativity that seemed at odds with the logical, efficient society she had described. Later, as they shared breakfast, John found the courage to ask a question that had been bothering him. If Your people are so advanced, why do you need humans? Surely you could solve your genetic problems with your technology. Lyra set down her tea, a beverage she had grown particularly fond of. We tried, she said. We used genetic engineering, cloning, artificial wombs, every scientific solution we could devise. But something is missing. Something we cannot replicate or create. Our bodies are failing. But more than that, our spirit is failing. We have extended our lives to nearly 300 of your years, but our birth rates continue to decline. Our children, when they are born, lack something vital, something we cannot name. It is as if our species has lost its will to continue. She looked up, meeting John's eyes. It is not just genetics, John. It is something more, something in your human spirit. Your kind fights against impossible odds. Dreams when logic says you should despair. Creates when there is no practical purpose. Loves when there is no logical benefit. These qualities we have lost in our pursuit of perfection, and we cannot get them back without you. John considered her words, trying to imagine a society where efficiency and logic had replaced passion and creativity, where everything served a purpose, where nothing was done simply for joy or love. It sounded hollow. Empty. Is that why you watch our movies and listen to our music? He asked. Because your people don't create those things anymore. Not as you do. Lyra admitted. Our art is mathematical, precise, beautiful in its way, but it does not make one feel. It does not stir the soul as your human music does. Your art is chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. It reflects your inner lives, your passions, your pain. We have forgotten how to create like that. As days passed, John's decision weighed on him. He found himself looking at everything differently, memorizing the feel of rain on his skin, the taste of his favorite foods, the sound of birds in the morning. Would these things exist on Lyra's world? Would he ever experience them again if he left? He told no one about his choice about Lyra. The secret was too big, too impossible to share. He simply went through the motions of his normal life, all while feeling increasingly disconnected from it. How could he focus on work deadlines or bills or everyday problems when he was contemplating traveling to another star? One evening, about a week after Lyra had mentioned leaving, John came home to find her standing by the window staring at the sunset with an expression of wonder. Your sky is different every day, she said as he entered. Never the same colors, never the same clouds. My world has predictable weather, controlled environments. We sacrifice this beautiful chaos for comfort and stability. John stood beside her, watching the riot of colors painting the western sky. Like so many things, I never really appreciated it until I saw it through your eyes. Lyra turned to him. Her violet eyes seemed to glow in the fading light. I have completed my report. My ship is almost ready. I have perhaps 7 of your days before I must leave. I would know your decision. John Miller. John's heart raced. 7 days. That was all. And then she would be gone forever. Unless he went with her. Unless he took the greatest leap anyone had ever taken. I need more time, he said. Lyra nodded. I understand. This is not a small thing, I ask, but know that time grows short. That night, John could not sleep. His mind raced with questions, fears, possibilities. What would happen? If he said yes, would he be studied like a specimen? Would he be welcomed as an equal? Would he ever see Earth again? What would happen if he said no? Would others come? Would Lyra's people make contact with humanity? Would he spend the rest of his life wondering about what might have been? The next morning he called his boss and requested a week of vacation time, which was granted with some grumbling. He had accumulated weeks of unused time over the years, never taking trips, never breaking his routine. Now he needed time to think, to decide, to prepare. Perhaps John, Lyra said when he told her his plan. May I make a suggestion? Of course. Show me your world, she said. Not just this apartment. Not just movies and books. Show me the places that matter to you. Help me understand what you would be leaving. And so they began a strange secret journey, traveling only at night when Lyra could move more freely, disguised in human clothes, her alien features hidden beneath hats and scarves. John took her to places from his childhood. The lake where he had learned to swim, The forest where he had camped with his father. The hill where he had first looked at stars and wondered what was out there. By day they stayed in small motels. Lyra's ship shrunk down and hidden in John's backpack. She remained inside while John brought her food and books and small treasures from each place. Things to help her understand Earth and humanity at the ocean. Lyra stood with her feet in the surf, her face lifted to the salt spray, her silver hair whipping in the wind. "This is magnificent," she whispered. "Your world is so alive, so wild, so free. My people would fear this. Your people play in it, in mountains." She touched ancient trees with reverence, feeling the rough bark, the smooth leaves. "These have lived longer than many humans," she observed. "Yet humans protect them, honor them even though they serve no function beyond beauty, beyond belonging to the world. My people would have replaced them with something more efficient, long." Out in a small town fair, Lyra, disguised carefully, watched children on carnival rides, their faces alight with joy and fear and excitement. "Your young are so expressive, so uninhibited," she said. "Our children are taught control from their earliest days. They do not laugh like this. They do not play like this with each place, each experience." John felt himself torn. His connection to Earth, to humanity, deepened. Yet so did his understanding of what Lyra offered. The chance to see beyond the boundaries of his world. To be part of something vast and wonderful and important. To make a difference in a way few humans ever could. On their last night they camped in a remote clearing far from city lights. The stars blazed overhead, more brilliant than John had ever seen them. Lyra pointed out constellations, then showed him stars beyond what his human eyes could see. Stars where her people had traveled, where they had found life, where they had built outposts and colonies. So many worlds, she said, so much. Life, so much wonder. The universe is not empty. John, it is filled with possibilities, and yet you came here, he said to Earth. To me. She was quiet for a long moment. Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining in what had become a familiar gesture. People have visited 1,000 worlds, studied 100 species, but none like humans, none with your particular spark, your resilience, your capacity for both destruction and creation. You stand at a crossroads. You could destroy yourselves and your world, or you could reach for the stars. Join the community of worlds, become more than you are. Each human carries that potential, that choice. And you, John Miller, you carry it more than most. I see in you what my people have lost, what we need to find. Again, John looked up at the stars, trying to imagine the worlds beyond his sight, the civilizations, the possibilities. Then he looked around at the earth, at the trees and grass, at the campfire burning beside them, at the small, beautiful world that had always been his home. I have made my decision, he said. Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. He took a deep breath. I will go with you. The words once spoken felt right. They felt inevitable. As if his entire life had been leading to this moment. Lyra smiled a smile of genuine joy. Are you certain? As certain as I can be. John said, this is the greatest leap anyone has ever taken. But if I don't go, I will wonder for the rest of my life. What might have been. What I might have seen. What difference I might have made. I cannot live with that wondering. Lyra squeezed his hand. Preparation will be needed, she said. We leave in 2 days. 2 days to say goodbye to a world he would need, to tie up loose ends, quit his job, pay final bills, leave a note for his few friends. Nothing that would explain the truth, of course, but something to prevent them from searching for him for too long. His mind raced with practical concerns, but underneath was a growing excitement, a sense of purpose he had never felt before. He was about to become the first human to travel beyond the solar system, the first to see another world, the first to truly understand what waited among the stars. That night, looking up at the sky beside Lyra, John felt both. Very small and impossibly significant part of him was terrified, but a stronger part, the part that had always dreamed of more, knew this was right. This was his destiny. The journey through space was nothing like John had imagined. There were no stars streaming past the window, no sensation of movement at all. The ship created its own environment, its own gravity. its own sense of time. Inside, it felt peaceful almost, dreamlike, while outside the very fabric of space folded around them, bringing distant stars closer. Lyra explained the principles of their travel, in terms John could barely grasp. Space was not empty, but filled with energy, with potential. Their ship did not move through space so much as reshape it, temporarily creating shortcuts between distant points. The mathematics involved were beyond human understanding, but the effect was simple. Distance became relative. Time became fluid. Stars that should have been unreachable in a human lifetime became neighbors. Each day brought new wonders, new knowledge, new understanding. The translator at the base of John's skull worked constantly, feeding him information, helping him learn the language concepts and history of Lyra's people. Sometimes the information came as words, sometimes as images or sensations. It was overwhelming at first, but gradually his mind adapted, began to organize the flood into patterns he could comprehend. Lyra was a patient teacher, answering his endless questions, explaining, showing, demonstrating. She taught him about the Valen, their long history, their technological evolution, their current crisis. She showed him holographic images of her world, Xanthea, the third planet, of a star humans had never even named. Your astronomers have not yet detected it, she explained. Our star is hidden within a nebula that obscures direct observation. But one day they will find it. And by then, perhaps there will be humans living there, already part of our world. The thought was staggering, humans and aliens living together, working together, learning from each other. It seemed impossible, yet here he was, proof that impossible things could happen. As the days passed, John found himself changing. Not just in knowledge, but in perspective. Earth and humanity remained precious to him, but they were no longer his entire universe. He began to see them as Lyra did. One world, one species among many, unique, beautiful, valuable, but part of something larger, something wonderful. His dreams changed too. At first he dreamed of Earth, of the life he had left behind, dreams filled with nostalgia, with loss, with fear. But gradually new dreams emerged. Dreams of alien landscapes, of crystal cities, of people with silver hair and violet eyes, dreams of possibility, of discovery, of belonging. On the 24th day of their journey, Lyra came to him with a new seriousness. We approach the outer boundaries of the Valen system, she said. Soon, we will be detected, monitored. There are protocols for returning ships, especially those carrying visitors. Are you prepared as I can be? John replied. The translator had given him much of what he needed to know about Valen customs, greetings, expectations, but nothing could truly prepare him for what was to come. He would be the first human to set foot on another world, to meet an alien civilization, to become part of something beyond Earth. Lyra nodded. There is one more thing. A gift. If argued, you will accept it. She held out her hands. Between them floated a small crystal sphere glowing with soft blue light. What is it? John asked. Knowledge, she said. Not fed slowly through the translator, but directly encoded. Some of our history, our science, our art. Things that would take years to learn otherwise. It cannot give you everything, but it can give you foundation. Understanding. Context. John hesitated. This seemed different than the translator. More intimate. More transformative. It will not change who you are, Lyra said softly, reading his concern. It will not make you Valen. It will simply help you understand us, as I have come to understand humans, how she explained. The crystal would connect briefly with his mind, with the translator. A single moment of direct transfer. Not permanent, but significant. It would give him context for what he was about to experience. Prepare him in ways words alone could not. He trusted her, this woman from the stars who had changed his life. And so he nodded, took the crystal into his own hands. It was warm, alive in a way he could not explain. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Close your eyes. Lyra instructed. Place it here against your forehead. John did as she asked. The crystal warmed further then. There was a flash of blue light behind his closed eyelids, and suddenly he knew. He knew the history of the Valen, their evolution on a world with 2 moons, their early struggles, their development of space travel thousands of years before humans had even built cities. He knew their philosophy, their art, their science, understood concepts that had no equivalents in human languages, saw mathematical principles that human minds had never conceived. He knew their crisis, the slow decline of their species, the desperate search for solutions, the hope they had found in humanity and him. The knowledge settled into his mind, not replacing what he was, but adding to it, expanding him, making him more than he had been, without changing who he was. When he opened his eyes, Lyra was watching him, her violet eyes wide with concern. "Are you well?" she asked. John nodded. "Better than well, I understand now. Not everything, but enough. I understand why you came, why you chose me, why this matters." She smiled, relief evident in her posture. "Then we are ready," she said. "We will arrive tomorrow." That night, his last night before reaching Xanthia, John could not sleep. He stood by the viewing panel watching as a new star grew brighter before them. Lyra's sun. His new sun. Around it orbited worlds he could now name, could describe in detail, though he had never seen them. Planets and moons that would soon be as real to him as Earth had been. Lyra joined him. Her presence, familiar, comforting, despite her alienness. "Tomorrow, you will be the first human to walk on another world," she said. Her voice held wonder, pride, affection. "You will make history, John Miller, though your own people may never know it." John turned to her. "This isn't about making history, it's about making a difference, about being part of something important, something that matters to both our peoples." She nodded. "This is why you were chosen. This is why you are right." The next day, the ship entered the Valen system properly. John watched in awe as they passed. The outer planets, gas giants with rings more spectacular than Saturn. The 4th planet, a frozen world of blue ice. The 2nd planet close to the star, covered in swirling clouds of yellow gas. And between them, the 3rd planet. Xanthia. It looked nothing like Earth, and yet it was clearly a living world. Continents of deep purple and gold, oceans that shimmered silver in the light of the star, clouds of white and pale blue swirling in patterns across the surface. As they drew closer, John could see the city's vast structures that seemed to grow from the land itself. Crystal spires that caught and reflected light. Mountains shaped into terraces covered in vegetation, unlike anything on Earth. The ship descended through clouds, through atmosphere. The sensation different than their departure from Earth, smoother, more controlled. Below them, a city spread out like a vast geometric garden. Buildings of crystal and living material flowing into one another, creating a harmonious whole. Parks of alien vegetation and shades of silver and deep purple waterways that glowed with bioluminescence. We arrive at Meridian City, the heart of Valen civilization. Lyra explained. The ship spiraled down toward a central plaza surrounded by tall spires. On the ground, figures gathered, looking up, waiting. Hundreds of them, perhaps thousands. Their silver hair shimmering in the light of the alien sun, their tall, slender forms familiar now thanks to Lyra. Yet seeing so many at once made John realize anew how different they were from humans. How alien among the waiting crowd one figure stood apart, taller than the others, wearing robes of flowing silver material that seemed alive with light. The leader, Lyra, had told him about him, alien oldest of the Valen Council guide to their people for over 200 years. The ship settled gently onto the plaza, the engines quieted, then silence, a moment of transition, between worlds, between lives, between what had been and what would be. "Are you ready, Lyra?" asked one final time. John took a deep breath, looking out at the alien world, at the people waiting, at the new life that began beyond the ship's door. He thought of Earth, of all he had left behind, and he thought of all that waited ahead. The knowledge he would gain, the difference he might make, the bridge he would build between worlds. "I'm ready," he said. The door opened. Light flooded in, light from an alien sun falling on the first human to breathe the air of another world, the first to take this step, but perhaps not the last, perhaps the beginning of something wonderful, Something important. Something that would change both species. Forever. Lyra stepped forward into the light, John beside her. Together they walked down onto the surface of Xanthia, his human feet the first to touch this soil. The gathered Valen watched in silence, their violet eyes wide with curiosity, with hope, with wonder. Elian moved forward, his ancient eyes studying John with intensity. "I welcome you, human, to our world," he said in the Valen language. The translator made the words clear, but John replied in the Valen tongue itself. Words Lyra had taught him carefully. "I bring greetings from Earth. I come in peace, in hope, in friendship." A murmur ran through the crowd. Surprise, approval, perhaps even joy. It was hard to read alien emotions, yet John sensed a lifting of spirits, a new energy, a spark where before there had been resignation.